The morning sun had barely risen over the quiet, barren landscape. Dust swirled gently in the thin air, catching the faint orange light, and the world seemed almost asleep. Yet, in the middle of this silent wasteland, a woman moved with a strange, carrying a small watering can. Her steps were slow, deliberate, almost ritualistic. She walked toward a grave. It was not a grand grave. No marble tombstones or golden engravings. Just a simple mound of earth, carefully shaped, with a few hardy plants struggling to grow around it. But there was something about it that made even the robots that occasionally passed by slow down for a moment, as if they sensed its importance. The woman knelt beside it, set down her watering can, and began pouring water over the soil. Every morning she did the same thing. She whispered words nobody could hear, and yet the barren earth seemed to respond. Tiny shoots of green stirred beneath her touch. The wind carried her whispers, and the soft sound of water dripping against the dry soil filled the silence. Villagers, in the distance, sometimes watched her with curiosity, shaking their heads. Why does she do that every day, they would ask. Some said she was crazy. Others believed she was honoring someone powerful. From a ridge above, a human watched her. He had arrived only recently, exploring the edges of the settlement. Her routine fascinated him. There was a strange energy in the air around her, something he could not explain. Machines nearby flickered with light, and even the dust seemed to swirl differently when she moved. The human took a cautious step forward, careful not to be noticed. She continued her ritual without haste. She tilted her head, listening to something only she could hear, and her hands moved as if performing a silent dance. He noticed her eyes, deep and tired, yet full of determination. It was not grief alone that made her act this way. There was something else, purpose, maybe even hope. Suddenly, a small green shoot, brighter than the others, pushed up through the soil. The woman's fingers touched it lightly, and the light in her eyes seemed to brighten, just for a moment. She smiled, almost imperceptibly, and whispered again. The human could not hear her words, but he could feel their weight. Whatever secret she held, it was powerful enough to make the barren earth respond. The human leaned closer, curiosity battling caution. He wanted to ask questions, but something told him to wait. There was a rhythm to her actions, a pattern that had been practiced. For years, he noticed that every drop of water seemed to fall in the exact same place, that every gesture was deliberate. As if she were performing a code only the earth could understand. Minutes passed, though they felt longer. The sun climbed higher, but she did not stop. When the watering finished, she straightened and looked at the horizon, her eyes scanning the distance as if expecting someone or something to appear. Then, quietly, she picked up her can and walked back the way she came, leaving the grave calm and still, yet somehow different. The human stayed on the ridge, heart pounding, mind racing. Who was she? And why did she water her own grave every morning? There was a story here, something that went beyond grief or tradition. It felt alive, and he could not tear his eyes away. He knew that tomorrow he would return, closer this time, to find out the truth. Whatever it was, it had the power to change everything he thought he knew about humans, life, and the strange. Silent world around them, as he watched, the wind carried a whisper through the empty land, one he could not understand, but one that made the hair on his arms stand up. The mystery had begun, and the first step into something extraordinary had already been taken. The next morning, the human returned. He kept to the shadows, careful not to make a sound. From a distance, he watched her move with the same slow, deliberate steps as yesterday. The barren land seemed untouched, yet the air around her felt different, charged, almost electric. She carried her small watering can and walked toward the grave as if nothing else in the world existed. He noticed things he had missed before. Her fingers traced patterns in the soil before pouring water, delicate gestures that made the tiny plants tremble and glow faintly. It was not ordinary watering. Every movement seemed intentional, precise, almost like a code or language spoken. In silence, the human crouched lower, heart pounding with a mixture of fear and fascination. She knelt, closed her eyes, and whispered again. The words were soft, like wind through the dust, but they seemed to make the air shimmer. The soil itself responded, ripples moving across the grave as if it were alive. Tiny green shoots, brighter and taller than yesterday, reached toward her fingers. The human's mind raced. What kind of power could do this? Was she human or something else entirely? Minutes passed, and he noticed her eyes scanning the horizon frequently, alert, careful. It was not grief alone driving her actions. There was purpose. Something she was protecting, something the human could feel in his chest a weight. Like the gravity of the entire world pressing down, yet also a pull, drawing him closer. Suddenly, a flicker of movement in the distance caught his eye. A small drone, probably belonging to the settlement, hovered nearby. But it did not approach her. It stopped mid-air, quivering as if unsure. Even the machines respected her. The humans. Curiosity grew. He wanted to step closer, to speak, but something told him that the moment had to be perfect. That rushing would ruin everything. She finished her ritual, standing slowly, water dripping from her fingers. She looked down at the grave with a gentle intensity, her lips moving as if silently speaking to someone who could not reply. Then, almost as if sensing the human's presence, she tilted her head toward the ridge. But she did not move or call out. She only paused, long enough for him to feel the weight of her gaze, and then she continued back to the settlement, leaving the grave glowing faintly in her wake. The human exhaled slowly, trying to steady his thoughts. Who was she? What was buried in that simple mound of earth that demanded such devotion every single day? And why did the world itself seem to respond to her actions? Questions piled on questions, each one heavier than the last. Determined to understand, he made a decision. Tomorrow, he would not only observe, he would follow her, he would stay closer, hidden among the scattered rocks and ruins. He would uncover the secret that seemed impossible to explain. Humans were meant to explore, to understand, to push the boundaries of the unknown. And he was ready to do what was needed to learn the truth. As night fell over the barren landscape, he imagined her routine, the whispered words, the glowing shoots, the silent dialogue with the grave. He realized this was more than a ritual. It was a test, a challenge, a message waiting to be understood. Something told him that the woman's actions were not just about the grave, but about humanity itself, the power, resilience, and intelligence that set humans apart. The wind whispered through the ruins, carrying with it the faint scent of earth and water, and the human knew he was on the edge of something extraordinary. He could not yet see the full picture, but he could feel it. Tomorrow, he would follow, and maybe then, he would uncover why a single woman could command such attention from life, soil, and even the world itself. The mystery had deepened. The human's curiosity burned brighter than ever, and one thought rang in his mind louder than all others: humans were special, and understanding her secret could prove it in ways he had never imagined. The next morning, the human was ready. He moved quietly, keeping low behind jagged rocks and broken walls of old settlements. Today, he would not just watch. He had to know why she tended that grave every morning. There was a pull in the air, like electricity dancing over the barren land. And he felt it in his chest. His heartbeat quickened. The woman appeared as usual, carrying her small, worn watering can. Her steps were measured, precise, and even from a distance, he could see the focus in her eyes. The human followed, careful to stay hidden. But as he got closer, he noticed something he had not before. She was humming softly, a tune that seemed impossible for such a quiet world. The sound carried, mixing with the whispering wind and the faint glow rising from the grave. It was not ordinary. There was power in it, subtle and strange. She reached the grave and set down the watering can. The human's breath caught as he saw her kneel and place her hands over the mound. The soil pulsed beneath her touch. Tiny green shoots moved toward her fingers like living wires, glowing faintly, and the air around them shimmered. Machines nearby flickered and hummed, but none interfered. It was as if the land itself recognized her authority. He stepped closer, curiosity outweighing caution. "Why do you do this every day?" he asked softly, his voice barely more than a whisper. The words hung in the air, yet she did not startle. She did not look up immediately. Her hands continued their gentle dance over the soil, tracing patterns he could not understand. Finally, she opened her eyes. They were sharp, intelligent, and tired at the same time. "Some things," she said slowly, "are too precious to forget." Her voice was calm, but there was weight in it, a depth that made him feel smaller, as if he had stepped into something far larger than himself. The human took a step closer, emboldened. "But what is this? Why the grave? Why the ritual?" He swallowed hard. There was something alive in the soil, something beyond understanding. Plants glowed brighter as if responding to his questions, and a faint hum filled the air, vibrating through his bones. She finally stood, still calm, but her eyes held a challenge. "You should not be here yet," she said, and the wind shifted around them, carrying a faint metallic scent. The human realized that he had trespassed, not into property, but into something far more sacred. Yet his curiosity would not let him stop. Humans were meant to question, to discover, to push boundaries. And he needed answers. "Please," he said, "I just want to understand. I want to help." The moment hung between them, heavy with uncertainty. The woman studied him for a long time, as if weighing his intentions. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Very well," she said. "But you must see it as it is, not as you wish it to be. Some truths are not gentle." She gestured to the grave. The human knelt beside her, watching as she poured water over the mound again. But this time, she allowed him closer. The soil seemed to respond differently, stronger, brighter, almost aware. The plants swayed, glowing like small stars, and a faint humming rose, low and vibrating, like a song from the earth itself. "This grave," she said, "is not just soil and memories. It is a connection, something we protect, something humans must understand." One day, her voice was quiet, but the human felt every word inside him. He realized that her ritual was not just personal. It was a message, a test, a proof of something far bigger than any human had yet known. For the first time, he saw it the reason she watered her grave every day. But understanding it fully would take more than observation. It would take courage, patience, and perhaps a willingness to see what humans were truly capable of. As she stood and prepared to leave, she looked at him with a quiet intensity. "Follow carefully," she said, "but be ready. You may not understand everything yet." The human nodded, heart racing. He had made contact, and the real journey had begun. The morning sun climbed higher, shining on the grave, the glowing plants, and the two figures standing in the barren land. Something extraordinary was awakening, and the human knew that this encounter was only the first step into a mystery that would change everything he thought he knew about humans and the universe itself. The next day, the human returned before sunrise. The air was cooler now, carrying a faint metallic Thames. He had followed her for 3 mornings, watching silently, but today he felt something different. He sensed that the ritual was not only about the gravette, was about the secret she guarded. Something much larger than he could imagine. The woman appeared at the edge of the settlement, carrying her watering can with the same calm, measured steps. Her eyes flicked toward the horizon, scanning, alert. She knelt at the grave, and the human crept closer, hiding behind a crumbling wall. He watched her hands move over the soil in the familiar pattern. But today, the soil reacted more vividly. The tiny green shoots from before shimmered, bending toward her fingertips like they were alive. A faint hum vibrated through the ground. Curiosity overwhelmed him. Carefully, he moved a little closer, peering over her shoulder. That's when he noticed a faint glimmer beneath the soil. Something metallic, structured, and perfectly symmetrical. A small device, partially buried, pulsing with soft light. He had never seen anything like it. It was not alien in design. But it was advanced. Far beyond the technology he knew humans had. The woman's voice cut through his thoughts, soft but commanding. "You see more than most," she said. "But seeing is only the beginning." She paused, touching the device lightly. The soil pulsed beneath her fingers, responding to her touch as if it recognized her. The green shoots glowed brighter, and the faint hum became a low, vibrating song that resonated in his chest. The human's mind raced. Could this be a memory core, or some kind of human consciousness preserved in technology? Whatever it was, it explained the ritual, the care, the precision, the devotion. She wasn't honoring someone lost in a normal way. She was protecting something vital, something alive in its own way. Suddenly, the soil shifted, revealing more of the device. Tiny symbols etched into its surface glowed faintly, almost like a language, but he could not read it. The woman noticed his gaze and did not look upset. Instead, she knelt beside him and said, "Do you understand? This grave, this device, it is proof. Proof of what humans can do. Proof of what humans are capable of when they push themselves beyond fear, beyond doubt." The human's curiosity turned into awe. He could feel the energy radiating from the grave. It was alive, not in a biological sense, but in a way that made him feel that life itself had chosen to recognize her. Humans had a rare gift: intelligence, courage, and creativity that could awaken even inanimate things to a form of consciousness. He reached out to touch the edge of the device, but she placed her hand over his. "Not yet," she warned. "The secret is fragile. One wrong move, one moment of impatience, and it could be lost. You must understand patience before understanding purpose." The human nodded, swallowing hard. He realized this ritual had a dual purpose. It was protection, but it was also a test of human understanding, determination, and respect. She had been guarding more than a grave. She had been guarding a testament to human potential as the sun climbed. Her hands moved over the soil once more, and the glowing shoots bent toward her as if bowing. The human felt a mixture of fear and inspiration. The secret she protected was powerful, and now he was part of it. The woman stood, lifting the watering can, and for a moment the device pulsed brighter. It was as if it acknowledged him, too. "You have begun to see," she said quietly. "But seeing does not mean knowing. To truly understand, you must follow. Observe and endure. Only then will the truth be revealed. And only then will you understand why humans are special." The human watched as she walked back to the settlement, her steps calm, deliberate, almost ceremonial. He stayed behind, staring at the glowing soil and the half-buried device. Something extraordinary had begun, something beyond ordinary understanding. He knew the next steps would not be easy, and the secret would demand everything he had: courage, patience, and the human spirit itself. As he turned to leave, he could still feel the pulse of energy from the grave, a quiet reminder that some truths were meant to challenge humanity, to awaken it. And for the first time, he understood that this woman's ritual was not just about honoring the past, was about proving what humans could achieve, even in a universe that seemed indifferent. To them, the human returned before dawn, his mind still racing from what he had seen the day before. The hidden device, the glowing plants, the faint hum vibrating through the soilet, all haunted him. He had begun to understand that this was no ordinary grave, and the woman who tended it was no ordinary person. Today, he needed to learn more, but he could sense that danger lingered in the air, waiting for mistakes, waiting for impatience. From the ridge, he watched her appear, carrying her watering can with the usual calm and precision. She moved as if she belonged entirely to this barren world, yet something in the way she breathed, the way her fingers traced the soil, made the land itself respond. The green shoots from the grave glowed faintly, bending toward her hands as if alive. The human crept closer, careful to stay hidden behind the scattered rocks and broken structures. But as he approached, he noticed something new, a shadow moving in the distance. A machine, large and silent, glided toward the grave. Its shape was angular, unnatural, unlike anything he had seen in the settlement. It was not a friendly presence. The woman's eyes flicked toward it, sharp and calculating. She did not panic. Instead, she knelt at the grave and whispered words he could not understand. The soil pulsed under her hands, and the green shoots glowed brighter, forming a protective barrier. The human realized that the ritual was not just cure, it was defense. Whatever lay beneath that soil was powerful enough to attract danger. And she had been guarding it all along. The machine drew closer, its sensors scanning, lights flickering. The human felt a chill. It was testing the grave, testing her. He wanted to run, to hide, but he could not look away. Humans were curious, brave, persistent traits that had carried them through countless dangers. Now those traits were being challenged in the harshest way possible. She stood suddenly, facing the machine, her eyes fierce. "You will not touch this," she said calmly, almost as if commanding the air itself. The human watched in awe as the green shoots around the grave surged upward, forming a glowing barrier. The machine hesitated, lights flickering erratically. It had no hostility toward her personally. It was a threat to the grave, to what it protected, and it recognized the force standing guard. The human took a cautious step closer. He could see the device partially exposed now, pulsing in response to the energy around it. Symbols on its surface flickered like a heartbeat. She gestured for him to stay back, but he could not tear his eyes away. Curiosity had brought him this far, and now the stakes were higher than ever. Suddenly, one of the green shoots extended outward, striking the machine with a pulse of energy. Sparks flew, and it faltered, retreating a few steps. The human's jaw dropped. The woman was not just tending a grave, she was controlling something beyond normal human comprehension. Her sacrifice, her ritual, had a purpose far greater than he had imagined. After a tense moment, the machine withdrew completely, retreating into the distance. The woman lowered her hands, and the glowing shoots returned to their normal size, shimmering softly. She turned toward the human, her expression calm yet serious. "You see now," she said, "the danger is real. What lies beneath this soil must be protected at all costs. Humans must endure, adapt, and understand to safeguard it." The human nodded, swallowing hard. He realized that curiosity alone would not be enough. To understand, to truly witness the secret, he would have to prove himself. Courage, patience, and wisdom would be required qualities that defined humanity in the harshest environments. As the sun began to rise, casting pale light over the barren landscape, he looked at her with new respect. This ritual, this grave, This hidden device, they were all part of something extraordinary. Something that tested humans not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. He knew the next steps would be even more dangerous, but he also knew that humans were capable of extraordinary feats, and that perhaps he had been chosen to witness them. For the first time, he understood the full weight of her daily ritual. It was not only care, but protection, teaching, and a test of human potential. The secret she guarded was alive, powerful, and extraordinary, and he was standing on the edge of understanding it. The next morning, Human arrived earlier than ever, his heart pounding with anticipation. He had followed her rituals, witnessed the strange energy from the grave, and seen the danger she protected it from. Today, he felt that the moment of understanding was near. Whatever lay beneath that soil was no ordinary secret, and he sensed that the woman was ready to reveal more. She appeared at the edge of the settlement, carrying her watering can as always, but her eyes met his with an unusual intensity. It was a silent acknowledgement that he had proven himself curious, brave, and patient enough to witness what she had guarded for years. She walked toward the grave, her steps measured and calm, as if the world itself held its breath in respect. The human crouched behind a rock, observing, but she stopped midway and gestured for him to come closer. Hesitating only for a moment, he approached. The air around the grave seemed alive, humming softly. The green shoots glowed brighter, bending toward the woman as if bowing. The device beneath the soil pulsed in response to her presence, sending waves of energy that resonated in his chest. "This," she began, her voice calm but heavy with meaning, "is not just a grave. It is a vessel of knowledge, a repository of human potential. What lies beneath this soil holds the memory of those who came before, the wisdom of generations, and the proof that humans are capable of extraordinary things." The human stared, trying to comprehend. The soil shifted gently beneath her hands, revealing more of the device. Tiny circuits and crystalline structures shimmered with light. Symbols etched into its surface flickered, forming patterns he could almost understand. It was more than technology, was alive in its own way, connected to her and now to him. She knelt. Placing her hands over the device, the green shoots around the grave surged upward, glowing like stars. "Humans are not ordinary," she said. "We endure hardships, we create, we adapt, and we rise when others would fall. This device recognizes that. It responds to intelligence, empathy, and courage, the qualities that make humans special." The human's eyes widened. He realized that her ritual was a test, a demonstration, and a proof, all at once. Every day she had watered the grave. She had been nurturing the memory and potential of humanity itself. The glowing soil, the hum, the device, they were all connected to something greater than himself, greater than any single human. Suddenly, the soil shimmered, and a holographic image rose from the device. Figures of humans, past and present, appeared, moving and interacting. They demonstrated creativity, courage, and innovation, moments where humans had achieved the impossible. The human watched in awe as the device replayed humanity's greatest traits. Immortalized within this grave. "You see now," she said, standing. "This is why I tend it. Not for sorrow, not for loss, but for preservation and proof. Humans are capable of greatness even when the world seems silent, barren, or hostile. And those who come after must see it, understand it, and continue the legacy." The human knelt, overwhelmed. The revelation was beyond anything he could have imagined. The grave was not just soil, it was a living testament to human resilience, ingenuity, and spirit. It was a message to the universe. Humans matter, humans endure, and humans can achieve the extraordinary. She placed the watering can down and looked at him with a quiet intensity. "Now you know," she said. "The secret is revealed, but it is also a responsibility. Protect it, understand it, and let it guide you. Humans must never forget who they are, even in worlds that seem impossible. As she walked back to the settlement, the human stayed behind, staring at the glowing grave. The device pulsed softly, and the green shoots bent gently, as if acknowledging his presence. He realized that he had witnessed not just a ritual, but the essence of humanity itself. The secret had been revealed, but it carried a weighty reminder that humans are special, capable of shaping even the unknown with courage, curiosity, and determination. For the first time, he understood the purpose of her daily ritual. It was not sorrow, but celebration, protection, and proof. And now he carried that understanding with him, a spark of humanity that could never be forgotten. The sun was low on the horizon, casting long golden shadows across the barren land. The human stood silently beside the grave, watching as the woman finished her morning ritual. The soil glowed faintly, the green shoots bending gently toward her, and the pulsing light from the device beneath the earth seemed to breathe with a quiet life of its own. For a long moment, neither spoke. The human felt the weight of what he had witnessed, the revelation, the danger, the proof that humans were capable of extraordinary things. He realized that this woman's ritual was not just a secret, but a lesson, a message encoded in soil, light, and technology. Humans are special, and they have the power to shape the world, even in the face of the impossible. She turned toward him, her eyes calm but intense. "Now you understand," she said softly. "What I tend is more than a grave. It is a record of human courage, of intelligence, and of resilience. It is proof that even in a silent, empty world, humans can leave a mark that cannot be erased." The human nodded, humbled. He had come seeking answers, but he had found something far greater. The ritual, the glowing plants, the hidden device, all of it was a celebration of what humans were capable of when they dared to act, when they cared, and when they persevered. He looked down at the grave, feeling a strange sense of peace. For years she had watered it alone, guarding its secret, testing her patience and determination. And now, that legacy would continue not because of her alone, but because humans were capable of understanding, protecting, and carrying it forward. The wind stirred across the barren landscape, carrying with it a soft hum from the device. The human realized that the grave had a rhythm, a pulse, a heartbeat. It was alive in a way he could not fully explain. But he understood the lesson. Humans are not ordinary. They endure, they adapt, they protect, and they create. And when they are aware of their own potential, nothing, not even a barren world, can hold them back. She picked up her watering can and took a step back. "This ritual continues," she said. "Even after I am gone, it will carry the memory and spirit of humanity forward. But now, you are part of it too." The human watched her walk away, each step deliberate, almost ceremonial. He felt a spark ignite inside him, a quiet determination to honor what he had witnessed. Humans were special, not because of power or technology, but because of curiosity, courage, and the ability to rise above limits. And now he understood that his role was to carry that truth forward, to learn from it, and perhaps, one day, to share it as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in fiery reds and oranges. He knelt beside the grave one last time. The green shoots glowed softly, almost as if acknowledging him, and the device pulsed with a gentle, steady rhythm. The secret had been revealed, yet it felt infinite, endless possibilities, untold stories, and the quiet proof of human greatness. He stood slowly, eyes fixed on the horizon. A sense of awe and responsibility filled him. The woman's ritual had shown him that humans are capable of extraordinary things. It was a reminder that in every challenge, every unknown, every barren world, humans have the power to leave their mark, to endure, to create, to rise. The wind whispered through the empty land, carrying with it the hum of the grave, the glow of the shoots, and the silent promise of humanity's potential. The human took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the lesson and the inspiration it brought. He knew this was only the beginning. The story of humans, their courage, their ingenuity, their resilience would continue, in him and in those who came after. And somewhere in the distance, the woman's shadow disappeared into the settlement, leaving behind a glowing grave, a pulsing device, and the eternal proof that humans, even in the harshest of worlds, are extraordinary.